No, Anthony, saying stand by and don't talk.
I missed the second half.
He's saying don't talk. Full to hear your sick voice.
I'm having a Merry Christmas.
Same here.
The Feast of the Holy Family, as well as the Martyr Saint Stephen.
Catholics have way too many feasts and far too many celebrations. Exactly. That's why they don't have a Protestant work ethic. Feel better, Ben. We all love you.
So, today we will be discussing Mech Shows. Now, Ken has watched none.
Correct.
Unless you count Blue Avatar, which I guess you can, but it's a terrible, terrible movie, so I don't want to.
This is very true, and I make no bones about the fact that I absolutely hate this movie. It's just the only mech thing I've seen.
Wait, you didn't even see Pacific Rim?
Oh, I forgot about Pacific Rim. I enjoyed that movie, the first one. I saw the second one.
Yes.
I was one of the test audiences for the second one, and I gave them so much critical feedback. I spent like an hour after the movie explaining to them exactly everything I hated about it. They didn't change anything. Just a terrible movie.
Yeah, I was very disappointed.
Everything.
And I didn't even go see it.
At least I didn't pay money to see it. That's all that matters.
True.
Anyway, okay, so... Oh, you know what? I take it back. I also watched Power Rangers when I was a kid.
I think that qualifies.
Does that
qualify? Yeah, they piloted a mech.
Power Rangers.
At the end of every episode, they always combined their morphin powers to summon their mighty Zords, and then they piloted them. And then they combined to form the Ultra Megazord. It was a very dumb show.
Well, there you go.
But I had a couple friends that were Power Rangers towards the in one of the later iterations of the show.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I gotta admit, I wasn't a Power Rangers person myself. I fell head over heels in love with the Zoids franchise and didn't look back.
No worries. You youngsters don't know what it is like at the dawning of children's television.
So, yeah, well, so I have seen 6 mech shows total, and one of them I just remembered now. I was going to say 5, then I realized I saw S. Gridman, which I guess is a mech show. It's kind of a mech show.
I don't know that one.
It's new. It's an adaptation of like the it's like an anime update done by Studio Trigger of an old I don't know what the genre is, but you know, those Japanese shows where they fight where giant robots come in and fight giant monsters.
Yes.
Tokusatsu or something. I think I have that wrong, but whatever. It's pretty good. At least I don't know if it's technically mech, but it's a giant robot fighting a big monster, so hey. I've seen that. I have seen Gurren Lagann, which is amazing and is a fantastic show. Kill la Kill, which Ken and I have argued, or not Ken, sorry, Ben. Yeah, Ben and I have argued in the past is a mech show, even though the mechs are close. Let's see, Robotics Notes, which nobody but me has seen in the past 20 years. JD Cohen says tokusatsu. I wasn't actually that far off. There you go. So it was a adaptation of a tokusatsu show. So there you go. Anyway, and I've seen. What am I missing? Oh yeah, Ironblooded Orphans, which is a Gundam show, and 86, which
Yeah,
is out
same here.
now, yep, and is excellent.
What was what?
The weird noise in the background. I believe that was coming from you, Ben.
Accurate. It might have also been me typing because I was trying to answer Underworld Dreams question.
Ah, I see.
Let me type something and see if that's the same noise that you heard. Let me see.
Yep.
Ah, I shall not type ever again. I apologize for the deafening noises. We can't hear you, Ben. So tokusatsu, eh?
Yeah. I'm trying to type, and it's coming out weird. What I was trying to say is mech and slice of life combine in robotics notes.
I mean, slice of life is my favorite variety, so that would be an interesting one.
Underworld Dream says, did you mention Robotech and Battletech? Oh, that's true. I did see, it's not technically Robotech, it's the Japanese version. I did see Macross Plus. I did not like it very much, though, so Battletech I've never seen.
Transformers count as mechs?
Watch Transformers. But they're not piloted by humans, so probably not.
Well, sometimes they are.
Are they? Oh. I'm not gonna lie, I really don't pay attention to this genre.
Yeah, but I think that was the American iteration where they were piloted, the Headmaster's weirdness.
I'll be honest, I've watched the Michael Bay movie.
Right.
I actually liked the first Michael Bay film.
I do.
Think it doesn't take itself seriously at all, which allows it to be enjoyable.
Right.
And I found the Bumblebee movie amusing. Not much, nothing more than that, just amusing. The other movies were just terrible from 2, 3, 4, whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think I came into Transformers with the original RID in the 90s. And then after that came the Unicron trilogy, Armada, Energon, Cybertron. Cybertron was the best of the bunch. But yeah, they probably don't qualify as mecha because you technically don't pilot them, they pilot themselves.
Ah, fair. What about Neon Genesis? Is that mech?
Oh, very much so.
Okay.
I have seen 6 episodes of Neon Genesis Evangelion. My take on it was I was kind of bored.
Yes, but you hate everything that's old. It's so annoying about you.
I am hurt by this.
I know, but you hate old things. It's so baffling to me.
Is that true? Let me think it over. Well, Neon Genesis Evangelion came out in the 90s. So did Trigun, and I adore Trigun. And so did Bebop, and I adore Bebop.
Oh, that's true. Now, granted, I've never seen Evangelion, so I have no frame of reference. I might hate it also.
So Evangelion is a show that you're required to have an opinion on because it influenced all anime. Had an unbelievably profound influence on all anime. There was before Evangelion and after Evangelion. So everybody has really strong opinions on it, and I tried watching it, and I don't even really have a strong opinion. I just found it kind of, I was kind of bored.
Fair enough.
I don't know. It's the mech design. Here's what I'll give Evangelion: the mech designs in Evangelion are unbelievable, admittedly. They are justly famous, and they deserve to be.
It's also funny because I know somebody that looks exactly like the main character female in that show. So every time I see anything about it, I just think, oh, wow, that's my friend Emma. How bizarre.
JD Cohen says, I like old things and don't like Evangelion. Evangelion's not that old, though. Honestly, it's kind of the dividing line between old and new anime, which Bradford Walker points out, Eva is a classic of the genre. It's the Watchmen of mecha, which means that the damage it did is not to be disregarded.
Oh, burn! I love it, Bradford.
Ouch.
Joshua Kanapke says, skip the mess that ended Neon Genesis Evangelion. Enjoy Martian successor Nadesco. I tried watching that, I think. I got distracted and never finished it. It had nothing to do with any quality or lack thereof. Just, yeah, I got busy with other things and I forgot I was watching it.
Now the question is, Anthony, since you set the agenda for today as mecha, and I've barely ever watched the genre, and Carolyn, I don't think you are as proficient as Anthony is. What exactly?
Oh, she's more proficient than I am. You are wrong about that.
Then never mind. I shall sit in the back and let you two do the majority of the talking.
Well, to be honest, I don't typically watch humanoid mecha. My preferred mecha are the four-legged types. I think that's because Transformers spoiled me, because you had these walking, talking robots, and then you get humanoid battle mechs, and it's like, well, why would you do that when you could just have Transformers? So that's heresy. Sorry, Ben, but I just tend to favor the four-legged ones. So even the 86 spider mechs, they're annoying because insect theme. I'm not a big fan of that, but they have more than two legs.
If I had more than an erg of energy, I'd probably say something.
Poor Ben. Since I'm usually the sick one, though, it does feel nice to have someone else be under the weather.
Yeah, so in terms of current mech though, so I remember there was like a whole thing going around, like, is the mech genre dead? And like, normie anime reviewers like Giguk was going on about it and whatever. And I know it caused kind of a bit of a kerfuffle on, like, hashtag our guys, our side was mocking him for it. And
Is
then
Giguk
like
really that normie? He likes some weird stuff. Oh, really?
Giguk is incredibly normie. He's honestly like the bellwether of normie, I think.
Okay.
But yeah. Anyway, so we were then 86 came out this year, and 86 was a mega hit. Like, it did really, really well, and deservedly so, because 86 is fantastic. I have been enjoying it.
Oh, I remember mecha that I enjoyed. Oh heck, what was it called? Not Slumdog Millionaire. The boxing one.
Is that Real Steel?
Oh,
no,
Megalobox.
It was Megalobox. That was it. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. That was really good.
Megalobox was one of those shows I could tell it was quality. I have no objection to it, but I didn't like the style.
Okay,
like
fair.
taste-wise, I didn't like it.
Sure.
It's my same issue with Samurai Champloo.
Okay. It was basically Rocky with robots. Yeah, we're human robots, which I loved. Rocky's one of my favorite franchises.
Yeah, and Alexander goes on and on about like how Megalobox Nomad was actually, which was the sequel season, was actually brilliant. And, I believe him.
There's a sequel?
But I also... Yeah, got a sequel season, Megalobox Nomad.
All right, just say.
And he says it's brilliant. So, and I believe him, like, totally. It's just like the aesthetic of Megalobox. I don't like the music style at all. That is the background of the show. It's exactly my issue with Samurai Champloo. I can recognize that, like, objectively it is good, but it is not to my taste.
Sure.
And it's hard for me to get past that.
Sure.
Which is almost a shame.
Love Champloo.
Yeah, and, like, again, I have nothing bad to say about Champloo.
Sure.
Like, quality, objectively, I could tell that it had a lot of great stuff going for it, but just not my thing.
Sure. Now, would you call the second season of Megalobox?
Megalobox Nomad.
Nomad. Okay.
Nomad.
Yes.
Havoc Ringer says, showing up real quick to say you guys should watch Gao Gaigar and play Xenogears. Earlier, Bradford Walker mentions that King of Braves Gao Gaigar is as superversive as Japan gets. And Megabuster Shepard says Sir Sava had a Zoid story in one of his issues last year. Carolyn, was that you?
That was indeed me, and it was titled Lupus One.
Ooh, nice work.
I wrote that story for an anthology for the Moon, and it was not accepted, but a second one was. I was very happy to get this one a home in Sursova. Because I was writing for the Moon, I was trying to think of something that would match the theme, which was dreams, madness, visions, and I'm trying to cast my mind back exactly to what I was thinking, but as I've mentioned on my site a few times, I like wolves. So,
Oh, sure.
of course, the moon, wolves, werewolves.
Yes.
But everybody does werewolves. So, what could I do differently? And at the time, I discovered some AMVs for Zoids, which I already loved, and I might have been on another rewatch of my favorite series, Chaotic Century, at the time, or I might have just finished it. So I was playing these, and one of these ones was for the Command Wolf, which is a beautiful, beautiful Zoid. I don't think they have wolves in the franchise's most recent iteration. I could be wrong. The latest series was Zoids Wild Zero, which is a big nostalgia trip for anyone who has ever seen Chaotic Century. I mean, I actually had to stop watching the episode I decided to enter with because, oh my gosh, the feels, as they say these days. I was watching it and it was like, this is a callback to that episode of Chaotic Century. This is a callback to that. And it was, it made me kind of emotional. So I was like, okay, I gotta stop because otherwise I'm going to be a mess. And I can't handle that right now. But I had this one on a loop, or on this and a couple of others on a loop. And I was thinking, well, what can I do with wolves that people haven't done before? Well, who's done a wolf mech story? So I put that one on repeat, and I watched some of the videos, and I thought, okay, now what can I do? When you've got mechs, you've got to have something big enough for them to fight. And what are you going to find on the moon that they can fight? You can't necessarily use other mechs because the moon is small.
Right.
You can sell mech fights on Earth, but doing it on the moon, you could throw it out of orbit or disturb the tides or something, which would make a good story all on its own. But if you're going for a more combat-oriented story with mechs and monsters, you need something a little more balanced.
Interesting.
So
I would love to see Mech's. I didn't read that story. You said it was on the Moon series?
I don't think I've seen that.
Planetary? No, like you said it was on the planetary moon?
Yeah, Earth's moon.
Earth's moon. Okay,
In this case, the story is set on Earth's moon. So
no, I'm sorry. I meant the anthology. Yes.
oh,
I did publish. I published a mech story in Tales of the Once and Future King.
Mhm.
It was I can't. I'm blanking on the title, which is a shame because like this was 100% like one of our best stories in the entire anthology. So, Tales of the Once and Future King was an anthology that came out years ago. Now it's unfortunately currently not on Amazon since Superversive Press shuttered. I'll try and get it up again eventually, but I have a list of things that I have on the priority table first.
Sure.
So, anyway, in Tales of the Once and Future King, one of the stories was an adaptation of Tristan and Isolde, but in a post-apocalyptic Earth with mechs and vampires. I feel bad that I can't remember the title of it, but the story itself was brilliant. I remember in the review for it, somebody was worried it was going to be like postmodern ironic, which, because of the title, it was like a chivalric tragedy with giant steampunk robots and also vampires. But the story is not postmodern ironic. If it actually takes itself deadly seriously, and it was about like he falls in love with someone, but she's captured by the vampires. But then, like, she refuses to attack him, and then he decides he's going to go out and try and rescue her, and that's kind of just how the story ends. Really, really good, really good story. So that was my experience with mechs before I really got like super into anime. In terms of actual anime that I've seen, of course, there's 86 now. There's also Ironblooded Orphans, which is like 86's twin sibling. It is a very, very similar show. A.M. Freeman says, I saw that opera once, Tristan and Isolde. Yeah, it is a famous opera too. It's a romance thing. I actually
Right.
don't know the original legend all that well, but I love the adaptation that I got. Anyway, I've seen yeah, my absolute favorite mech show, of course, is Gurren Lagann, which was on our S tier. So was Kill la Kill, but I like Gurren Lagann more. Gurren Lagann is very nearly a flawless show. It is absolutely brilliant in many ways. Features one of the great death scenes in anime history, when a character dies, gets up, avenges his own death, and then dies again after giving one last badass line.
Wow.
Gurren Lagann is an all-time favorite, and it's a classic for a reason. Interestingly, 3 of my favorite mech shows are trigger shows. 3 of the mech shows I've seen are trigger shows. Dynazenon, hello, David.
Hello there.
David, welcome to the chat.
Interrupt me.
Hi.
Come up, say something interesting. Quick. Save
David,
the chat,
look-
David.
Have y'all heard about a new book series? It's about giant robots in space.
Giant robots in space?
The link is in the description. Is the link in the description? Let me see. Amazing. Awesome. Yes, the War Angel series. But you guys were also talking about Gurren Lagann, which is kind of amazing. So I may have interrupted that.
Gurren Lagann has
Wait
my
my time.
all-time. So my favorite anime trope is when they play the theme song over some sort of awesome battle scene. And Gurren Lagann has my absolute favorite version of this trope, when the Team Goron in the final episode has gone into space and are taking on the anti-spirals.
Right.
And the anti-spirals who are trying to stop. I'm trying to remember what it was. They were trying to stop. They were trying to stop energy from running. Yeah, they were trying to stop energy from running out in the universe, and their way to do that was to keep man from growing and expanding, because that meant that they used up energy.
There's
So
zero
Team
PG
Goren.
Yeah.
Yep. So Team Goren goes out to fight the anti-spirals. They take a punch that it is said contained more power than the Big Bang. And then after they take the punch, the theme song starts playing, and Simone starts giving this absolutely epic speech as Team Goren goes in and starts fighting their way into the anti-spirals. In the movie version of Gurren Lagann, he jumps out of the mech and punches the anti-spiral in the face. In the show version, they don't include that scene, but it's pretty much equally badass in both versions.
I mean, they were throwing galaxies at each other, if I remember.
They were,
Like,
yes.
They were throwing stars.
They were using galaxies as shuriken. It was fantastic.
Good
Didn't
grief.
make a lick of sense.
Oh my goodness. Power scaling in comics and anime is always ludicrous.
I think it was pretty self-aware of how absurd it was. Like, I think that
It
was
was
kind of the
very
point.
self-aware, but it
But
also
that
took
doesn't help
itself
for me.
seriously.
It's like I'm gonna screw my robot on top of the head of the other robot, and then it'll be the head for the robots, and they'll be more powerful. It's like that isn't how robots work, and he just does it.
Yes, it was amazing. They're at the front of it. He's like, "We're going to combine," and everybody there is like, "Well,
You idiot.
what are you talking about?" It's not, they're like, "That's not how that works," and he does it. And they're like, "Oh my god, it worked!" It's incredible.
Good grief.
Gurren Lagann, like, it starts off very nearly being like a parody of the mech genre, like on the edge, right? And then, like, well, I want to say like 7 episodes in, a major character dies, and like a flip switch, a flip switches. Wow, that's a great one. A switch flips, and then suddenly the show. I wouldn't say it becomes serious per se, but everything is treated with a lot more weight. Like his death is treated very seriously.
Right.
In fact, it's actually like it's honestly the aftermath of that character's death is one of my favorite things in any anime. I think that the way they handle it is amazing.
Yes. There's also
and-
this amazing scene. Like my two favorite scenes that aren't, so to speak, fight scenes are the one where they first burst out from the underworld and they see the sky for the first
oh,
time.
that's incredible. Yeah.
And then there's this amazing scene where he gets in his robot and he's flying off, and the whole world thinks he's the villain, and he's just broken out of jail, and the moon is coming to crash in on the planet and destroy it. And he's like, "I'm gonna fight the moon."
Oh, yeah, that I was actually going to say that. That's probably my second favorite scene in the show. When the moon is going to crash into Earth, everybody's wondering what to do. They're all panicking because they tried to like evacuate a portion of the Earth, but now they know that's going to fail. Everybody who's left on the surface is already going to die. Simone has just been broken out of jail because he's been framed so that they have a scapegoat to blame for the crisis.
Right.
And now that he's out of jail, they go, "What are you going to do?" And Simone, I'm paraphrasing here, it's not an exact quote, but Simone basically says, like, with this cocky look on his face, like he knows exactly what he's going to do. Goes, "Isn't it obvious? I'm going to push the moon back into space." And that's like how the episode ends. And then I'm like, oh my God, I love this show. So good. And then he goes to push the moon back into space, and as he does it, he accidentally reconnects the circuits on the moon to reveal that all along the moon was actually a gigantic mech.
Because of course it is.
Yes.
No, it's absolutely fantastic.
There's
Gurren
another
Lagann
amazing
is a
scene.
fairy tale in space set with robots. Like,
Yep. It's this weird combination of being like weirdly innocent and also like risque at the same time. It's almost it's very odd. Like Yoko, for example, dresses in very skimpy clothes throughout the majority of the show.
Just like her namesake.
Yeah, right. But yeah, she dresses in very skimpy clothes throughout the majority of the show, and so does Kamina, for that matter, who's another one of the main characters. They both are dressed in like very skimpy clothing, but like they don't actually do anything, if that makes sense. And Simone marries Nia eventually, but Nia is like almost the opposite of Yoko in how she dresses and acts, and she dies immediately after the wedding. Spoilers.
I hated that. That is the
I
thing about that
did.
show I hated.
So I did until I watched Alexander did a couple of videos on Gurren Lagann, the underrated maturity of Gurren Lagann and the duality of Gurren Lagann, and he managed to change my mind
I'd need a
on
big
the
change,
ending.
but maybe I should watch that sometime.
I highly recommend those videos. I used to agree with you. Even when I gave my first review of Gurren Lagann, I said it was fantastic except for the final 5 minutes, but I changed my mind. I actually think it works.
Bringing
Let me
that up,
guess.
and if not, sorry.
Oh,
Go
I was
ahead.
just going to say is his argument that like he grows up and puts aside childish things, which is apparently that.
No, not exactly. No.
Okay.
It's a little bit more than that. There's a
I don't
lot
think
going. There's
Amanda
like a
White
lot
is
going on
actually
there.
mature. Okay.
So it's not so much about growing up and putting beside childish things. It's about finding the balance. So Gurren Lagann is a show about the unlimited potential of humanity, but at the same time, it's also a show about making sacrifices. Kamina promises Yoko earlier in the show that he's going to be with Yoko forever, but Kamina doesn't keep that promise. So
He does
at
not.
the end of the show, when the when the anti-spirals say, if this is how it must be, Joshua Kanapke says, love the chat, got a roll. Thank you for joining in. It will be up if you want to listen to the rest of it. Anyway, so at the end of the show, when Nia, when Nia is rescued and Simone is talking to the anti-spirals after punching them in the face so hard that they fade away from existence because Simone's that awesome. They tell him, if this is how it must be, protect the universe at all costs. And Simone says, of course we will. Humanity isn't that stupid. So it's this acknowledgement that Simone is telling him, we know that we need to make sacrifices. We know that we can't have everything. We're not idiots. So Simone and Nia are agreeing to make the sacrifices for the rest of humanity. They're agreeing, and Simone is saying, now it's no longer my turn to be the hero. I've done everything that I could, and me and Nia were able to hold on long enough to get married, to do even what Kamina couldn't do. And now it's somebody else's turn. But it's a little bit more, it's more to it than that. I'm not explaining it as well as I could. I highly, highly, highly recommend Alexander's video. It's excellent. Yes.
Well, I was going to say, actually, with regard to killing characters off, one of the reasons, and I know I've said this before, that I loved Chaotic Century is a lot of the shows at the time tended to pull what we call a Dallas. If you saw the television show at the time,
Yes.
one season ended with a dream sequence where everybody died, and then the next season everybody's alive because it was all a dream. So Gargoyles had one of these episodes, and of course the Marvel shows weren't necessarily pulling a Dallas, but I was watching Marvel episodes at the time, so you had time travel, and they'd go to a horrible future, and everybody would die except for this one character who would come back and reveal what was going to happen, so they'd come through and they'd save the day, and the future would be averted. I hated those episodes regardless because I forget, I think it was Tui T. Sutherland said, or somebody said something about this book takes your heart out and rips your heart out and stomps all over it. That's what those episodes always did for me. I hated them.
It cheapens everything that they promise.
Exactly.
It's like, we're going to give you a story with real gravity and resolution, and nope. It's like, just kidding.
Yeah, that was always annoying. But what was different for Chaotic Century is it would fake you out. The big ones that I'm remembering are two bandits from the first episodes of the series, Rosso and Viola. And they start out pretty typical bad guys, mooks, average level villains. They get a little more intense the further they go along, but they're still not on the level that you think that they're actually going to kill the heroes. And eventually, Rosso is captured by the Imperial Army. Because there's two factions in Chaotic Century, the Hellic Republic and the Gylos Empire. Now, the Gylos Empire is the big, strong country, whereas the Hellic Republic is the underdog. The thing is, with a ceasefire at present, a lot of the soldiers get bored, they want to go off and make their own money, and in this case, for Rosso and Viola, and at least some of their subordinates, apparently, something happened. Rosso ticked off the wrong person in command and got the boot, so they went to banditry to support themselves. They get double-crossed, and Rosso takes the fall to protect his bandit gang. So when he gets rescued by Viola and a couple more of the crew, they decide they're going to get revenge. Now, how do you get revenge on the most powerful empire on the continent? On the most powerful, country on the continent, because there's only two. You kidnap the 10-year-old emperor, whose grandfather just died. The thing is, when Rosso and Viola kidnap him, they do it the same day that the regent, Gunter Prosen, planned to have Rudolph assassinated to start the war with the Republic again. So Rosso and Viola find themselves taking care of this kid that they initially planned to ransom him to get money. But once they realize that his life is in danger, they protect him and they keep him safe. In order to repay them, Rudolph, who is a very naive 10-year-old boy, very wise in the ways of statecraft, but stinks when it comes to understanding what what real life actually entails, decides he's going to go off and try and find some food because their supplies are running out. That's how he runs into the main characters, Van Fly Height, Fiona, Moonbay, and Irvine.
Okay.
While they're there, they load him up with food because they're the good guys, and they don't know that he's with Rosso and Viola, who are old enemies of theirs. But they pack him up with food and they get ready to send him off, only Rudolph doesn't know where he even is. So they have to find a way to get him back to Rosso and Viola. But as they're preparing to do that, they come under attack from Van's nemesis, Raven, in a very new powerful Zoid. If you haven't seen the series, you should look up the Genosaur. You can make it one word or two, it should still turn it up. And this is a Tyrannosaur-type Zoid with a charged particle cannon in its mouth. And the thing about the charged particle cannon is if you're in the direct line of fire, everything is vaporized. There's just particles of you left, and you don't see that. So Raven has come to settle the score with Van, who beat him in a previous episode earlier in the series. And the thing is, the Genosaur is so powerful, Van, even with his increased skill, can't hope to defeat it with his shield lighter. That's when Rosso and Viola show up. And they fight to buy Van and the others time to get away with Rudolph and protect him. And that's the final words Rosso says. You've got to listen to me. Protect him at all costs. It's a very moving episode. I didn't like Rosso and Viola up to that point. After that episode, I was very sad that they were gone. But later on in the episode, and it's a very poor masks that they wear to hide their identity. You think the characters could figure it out, but the characters, as far as they know, Rosso and Viola are dead. But once you see them, it's like that's them. They're alive, and it's the reveal at the end of the season is even more triumphant because, on the one hand, because of all these fake outs that had been going on at the time, it was like maybe they're not Rosso and Viola because they never called each other by their real names while they were wearing the masks, but only when they took the masks off, and you could absolutely confirm it. That was a really good, powerful moment because, and it was powerful to me because it was different from the zeitgeist of the time, which is one of the reasons why I really still, even to this day, love Chaotic Century, because zeitgeist is a very hard thing to get through and go against, but Chaotic Century, even though it was a foreign production, had no problem doing that, which is one of the reasons why I still love the show. And before I forget, I think it was Aaron VT. Aaron VT. He said, which issue was the Zoid story in First Sir Silva? That was the summer 2021 issue. And the cover image is from Lupus One. So my pitch for the moment. I'll stop talking now and let you guys talk.
Well, actually, since I don't have any experience whatsoever with mecha, I'm actually going to bounce since you got three people here that love the genre. Anthony, you're doing a great job. Carolyn, great to see you for the first time. David, always a pleasure.
Good to hear you.
I shall talk to you guys soonish. Ben,
Thank you for joining in, Ken. I appreciate it.
I'm sorry I couldn't contribute anything worthwhile to the conversation.
Not at all. It was fun to have you.
It was great having you, Ken.
Peace.
So the chat got somewhat busy. Let's see. Ray Hexafon was mentioned. Ray Hexafon was recommended to me by Josh Young. Superversive and excellent author in his own right, by the way. He wrote a story in God Robot called Felix Culpa. That's one of my favorite stories in that anthology. He recommended Ray Hexafon as the superior Evangelion. They mentioned it had Yoko Kanno music, which reminded me of another mech show I had forgotten about.
Evangelion, but it doesn't make you want to stick a fork in your eye.
Yes.
Okay.
Vision of Escaflowne was another mech show that I've seen that I forgot about. I enjoyed Vision of Escaflowne very much. It's a good show. It has a fantastic soundtrack, obviously, because it's Yoko Kanno and everything she touches turns to gold. Really interesting mech designs. I do remember my sister watching it and she get past the aesthetic clash of medieval world with mechs. Like I thought that was I thought that was part of the appeal. Like I thought, but she couldn't get past the aesthetic clash. However, if you can, it is a fun show. It has one of the best cat girl waifus in anime.
I keep hearing good things about Escaflow, so
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's very fun. Havoc Bringer asks who plays Super Robot Wars here. I do not. Sorry. Anybody else?
Nope.
And let's see what else is in the chat. Brad Walker says Gurren Lagann's drill and demonstrate its validity throughout the series. The answer to that is yes, it did. The drill analogy of Gurren Lagann is excellent. And much talk about the OP of Kotasushin Jig. I have never heard of that show, but
Nope.
apparently its OP is straight fire. I'll have to look it up.
Who's seen Ironblooded Orphans?
That would be
I
Anthony.
Yes.
I thought it was excellent. It handled a lot of grim stuff really well.
Did you watch the full second season? Because I watched the second season. I know
a
how
lot
it
of
ends,
people
though.
hate the second season. I thought the second season was it wasn't even a surprise. It's like, yeah, this is how this story ends.
Yeah.
This
Ironblooded Orphans
actually ends with this.
I agree, because so we're gonna spoil everything about it now. And honestly, you should probably, even if we talked around it, you should be able to tell what we're talking about, I think. So sorry, everyone. I do still recommend it. Everybody dies at the end.
Plugging my ears. La la.
I mean,
just kidding.
They
It's a
set
dark,
up a
dark
mercenary sort of semi-criminal organization, and they're either in a situation where they become the new Dark Overlord, they're crushed by the rising forces of order, or they tear everything down into utter chaos. So since they're building up,
they die.
Yeah, so since they're building up, it's like, yeah, this is how it's gonna go.
It had to end that way. I agree. I've actually only seen a part of season 2, but I know how it ends just because, like, every time you bring up season 2, they talk about it. So if I looked it up, it would always be brought up.
It's
like there was no way for me to avoid it.
It's
was
well worth watching.
Yeah, but when I heard about it, my thought was, yeah, that makes sense. You know, it kind of has to go that way. Ironblooded Orphans is an interesting show to compare to 86 because I think in many ways it's 86's spiritual predecessor. You know, they're very similar. Children who grew up in a bad situation, who are forced to who end up fighting in a war. There are some key differences that make it an interesting comparison. For example, in 86, for at the beginning of the story at least, the 86 orphans are forced to fight. But in Ironblooded Orphans, they fight by choice. Which is interesting.
It's more a matter of that it is their choice. I mean, they really got thrown into the deep end right from the beginning. I would say that until they are actually on Earth itself, near the end of season, like at the end of season 1 and at the beginning of season 2, that the chances for any of those kids to step down from a martial life is just zero.
Yeah,
they'd have been hunted down and shot.
David, I will say this to you. If you liked Ironblooded Orphans, you 100% would love 86, which I actually would argue is better.
Wow, high
I,
praise.
I liked Ironblooded Orphans. I'm a big fan of it, but Ironblooded Orphans has one very weird, very specific issue. It will, and I've mentioned this before, but it's so specific, it's bizarre to me. They will set up really emotional plot points and then resolve them in like the same episode. It's bizarre very quickly. Twice it happens in the first season, and it's very weird. First is a character is introduced as having like a long lost brother. Then that brother shows up. It turns out he's evil. They have a conflict, and then he sacrifices himself for, good brother, our brother, and then he dies. And none of these individual moments are handled badly, but it's all done so quickly,
Right
you
up out
lose
of
a lot
it.
of the impact. The second
Yeah.
thing that happens is the princess's Cadelia, her nurse ends up, or like her maid, I think, ends up betraying her. But then the maid is barely a character. She's like there in the background. Then you learn that she's actually been a traitor the whole time.
Right.
But then she has a change of heart at the last second, and she dies protecting the princess. And exact same thing. This is all done in one episode. Like all of it. The whole backstory, the betrayal, and the turn. And no individual moment of this is handled poorly. Like it's treated with a lot of weight, which is what it deserves to be treated with.
Right.
But it's all done so fast, I think you lose a lot of the impact. I don't know why they do that. Like it's such a specific issue that I've never seen anywhere else really with that much consistency. This is where 86 is better. It has setups and payoffs, I think, that are a lot stronger.
So
What were
basically,
you gonna say?
I was gonna say, for Iron-Blooded Orphans in these types of episodes, it's basically what was the number of that bullet train that hit me, because it goes by so fast.
Oh yeah. I mean, like it's good. IBO is very good, and
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, not everything is like this. Like one of the main characters dies at the end of season 1, and I thought that I think David would agree, right? I think that was set up well. Like he was a main character over the course of the show, and then when he dies, they set up his family, they set up all of that stuff. So it's not true that's of everything in the show,
Yeah.
but it happens more than once, which makes it strange.
Yeah, and 86 is actually really very balanced about it. And it takes its time setting up to it. I don't think you actually know about Shin's brother until like the middle of season 1, but you have all these little hints that lead up to the revelation that
Yes.
Shin's got a brother, and Shin's brother is now on the opposite side. Oh, this makes a lot of things make sense.
Yeah, this latest episode was a great example, actually, of like the slow build-up and payoff of 86. Like first, I thought this last episode might have been my favorite of the show. I loved it. I thought it was great. It was great action and really great emotional moments. I thought I did not connect. It's possibly because I wasn't paying close enough attention, but I did not connect until this episode so for David and for our listeners, in 86, like the enemy, which is called the Legion, are like they kind of take over like dead people and repurpose them into the hive mind. They don't totally lose. Yeah, I'm oversimplifying.
Well, I was just going to say that if you've seen Stargate SG-1, you will remember the replicators. Okay, cross the replicators with the Borg, and you have the Legion.
Yeah.
Sorry?
So
I said that sounds terrifying.
it is actually.
Yeah.
So they don't totally lose their personality, purposed into like insane versions of themselves that want to kill people. So there is a member of the enemy faction Legion that is called a Morpho that's so powerful that if it gets to like civilization, it's going to kill everyone.
Yeah,
So
it's called it's a railgun type. It shoots. Yeah, it uses electricity to shoot projectiles at horrendously high speeds, and once those projectiles hit, massive destruction. You see in a couple of episodes, I think it's episode 4 or 5 of season 2, it wipes out a bunch of forward operating bases and basically smashes one country, which wasn't actually much of a fighter anyway, to pieces. This thing is terrifying. If they don't destroy it, the entire remnant of humanity is dead, wiped out.
Yeah, so the 86, who are like the our faction who we're following, they are now the elite, are pretty much the elite fighting force of the new country that they've joined, and they go on what is considered by many people to be a suicide mission to take out Themorpho. So, like, the 86 don't consider it a suicide mission, or at least they won't admit it that it's a suicide mission. But everybody is kind of like, that they believe this is going to be a suicide mission, right? And the leader of the 86, Shin, is treating it like a suicide mission.
Definitely.
He thinks he's going to die, and he wants to die. He doesn't even really care. So they go to fight the 86, and I don't know if this was revealed this episode, or if it was revealed earlier and I just wasn't paying attention. But remember that the Legion are made up of people who were formerly humans who have had their minds, like, rewritten. And one of the main characters is named Frederica, and she is the former princess of the country that they're in, which has been turned into a republic. And she had a knight who was fighting for her that was lost in the war. And it is revealed that her former knight is actually the mind behind the Themorpho. So they have this incredible, I thought it was an incredible scene in the episode where Frederica, who is just a little girl and is watching this fight, sees that they're going to lose unless she does something. And she realizes, and she recognizes the Themorpho as her knight. So she walks out and she gets onto a link with the Themorpho and puts a gun up to her head and says, "I'm your princess. Are you going to let me hurt myself?"
Oh.
And essentially, that distracts him long enough for the 86 to get in. I'm taking out stuff in between here, but that distracts them long enough for the 86 to get in and take out the Themorpho. But the Themorpho, when it realizes it's going to lose, the episode ends with, once the Themorpho realizes that it's doomed and that they've managed to get past its defenses, it just blows itself up to try and kill everybody around them, and that's how the episode ends.
The Themorpho actually has the self-destruct because it is the pinnacle of Legion tech. This is their prize. They even describe it in the light novels that the anime is based on. They spared no expense getting the Themorpho to the pinnacle of technological development. This is their endgame weapon against humanity, and it's going to wipe them all out. So they can't let it fall into human hands, which is why it has a self-destruct.
Right.
So, yeah, but that scene that Anthony was talking about, holy cow. Frederica is an amazing character. And she does do that. She does, even in the books, she distracts Kiri, her knight. His name is Kiria Nozan, but she always calls him Kiri. Even now that he's been assimilated, they actually use that word into the Legion. She still calls him Kiri. And earlier in an earlier episode, and this is the setup Anthony mentioned, Shin carries a sidearm, and to prevent his fallen comrades from being assimilated and becoming part of the Legion, because he can hear the ghosts, quote unquote, the ghosts of the people whose brains have been assimilated into the Legion. Mm-hmm. To prevent them from being assimilated, he will euthanize severely wounded or dying soldiers on the front lines. And he carries this particular sidearm with him to do that. And in the last, I think it was the last episode, no, the episode before this, it was episode 8 of season 2, he tossed the gun to Frederica and said, you know what you have to do. If you can't get back to the main lines, make sure you are not assimilated. Because they have to take her with them. She snuck into the front lines with them, So they have no choice but to take her to the Morpho at this point, because going back is not an option without losing time going after the machine. And Shin's the only one who can get her safely back to the front lines. And they need him to scout ahead and know where the enemy is. So he gave her the gun, and she said, "This is what you used on all these other people. I told you not to look, because Frederica has a special power too. She can look into the past or present of anyone whose name she knows." So she says, "Fool, I saw it in your memories. It's too big and heavy for a little girl like me. I'll give it back to you when we get back to base." And so the scene when, even in the book, when she stands out and she puts the gun to her own head, and they actually did a really good job of making the point in the anime. You see her finger. She's a very smart girl. For a 10-year-old princess, she's very, very smart and very, very capable. You see her put her finger on the trigger, because when she's originally holding the gun, when she stops where she can better see the Morpho and it can watch her, her finger is initially off the trigger. You see it slide down into the and rest on the trigger. She's ready to pull that, or at the very least she looks ready, and that's enough to distract Kiri, even through the madness that is the Legion's programming. And that's what gives the 86 the chance to win, as Anthony said.
So the reason I think that this works... I'll answer that in a moment. But what I was going to say is the reason that I think that this makes it superior to Ironblooded Orphans is that everything that happens here, this was all really, really well set up. Like her conflict with her knight and her relationship with him, and how she's kind of projected that relationship onto Shin, who is the new leader of the 86. There's like that whole thing and her relationship with this was not something that was brought up in this episode. This was something that had been well established. Now, like I said, I can't remember if the Morpho was revealed to be the knight in this episode or not. He might have been revealed beforehand, and I could be wrong. But even if this was the episode, he was revealed to be the knight. Like, that is a perfectly fair reveal, because we knew that was a possibility with the Legion. Like, that was 100% always something that could have been the case with the Legion. It was 100% something that Frederica, if she knew about it, this was always something that she could do. Like, this super emotional moment where Frederica needs to come face to face with the person who used to be her champion, essentially, that she needs to take the gun that had been set up as a literal Chekhov's gun earlier in the show and use it like this to give Shin, who is now her knight, a chance to survive. Like, all of this is all so well set up. Frederica is probably, I think she's a really interesting addition to the show. I don't necessarily think that it's necessary for the show to have a character like her, but I am glad she exists in the show as constructed. But we'll discuss this more when we have the 86 stream, which we will have after I catch up on the light novels.
I would just add, somebody had in the chat, someone was talking about, they put in a link to G's OP, the music for 86. Holy cow! I have not heard music this good, and I love Hiroyuki Sawano's work. Holy cow! You've got to look up The Answer, which is a song they play in the middle of certain episodes. I can't remember who the singer is. Anthony, can you?
No, I don't know the singer. I don't know the singers in 86. I know you're absolutely right, though. The soundtrack of 86 is awesome. It's just really well done. It's a really well done production generally, and it's interesting to compare to Ironblood Orphans. I do think that Ironblood Orphans is a very good show, and in many ways they are thematically similar. In some ways, even thematically identical. You know, it's about children who are forced to fight from an early age, and then what they do when they have the option no longer to fight anymore. Well, the answer is they continue fighting, but 86 and Ironblood Orphans come to different answers. So in 86, one day the war is going to end, and that's going to be something that they're going to have to deal with. Well, in Ironblooded Orphans, the answer is that, well, if the war ends, we go to where the war never really ends, and we'll just go to where the fighting is. But that doesn't seem to be what they want to explore in 86, which hopefully raises the possibility that 86 can have a happier ending than Ironblooded Orphans does, because Ironblooded Orphans, because of the type of story it was telling, could only end in blood, but perhaps 86 could end differently. We'll see.
Yeah.
Going into the chats, Havoc says, I enjoyed Back Arrow a lot. It has Gurren Lagann's energy and some very interesting reveals at the end. Never heard of it. I will look it up. Divine Comedy Production says, if you like mecha and rubber hose cartoons, you guys will like Barrel Shell on YouTube. Barrel Shell on Webtoon. I will give that a look. I do like both of those things. And I mentioned, as I was thinking of, they mentioned Western stuff. There is a Western mech show that I have seen, and that is brilliant, and it is known as Symbionic Titan. Does anybody remember it?
Heard something like this.
So, do you know
Nope.
Genndy Tartakovsky,
No.
the creator
My
of Samurai
mecha
Jack?
knowledge is not great.
Oh,
Like,
Samurai
yes, I'm familiar with his work. Okay.
Yeah. So, the creator of Samurai Jack has a oft forgotten one season mech show, kind of the Firefly of mech shows, called Symbionic Titan. And Symbionic Titan is actually amazing. Really, really great show. It's essentially about, like, there is a war on another planet. I can't remember the exact details of the plot. And the princess, along with a robot guard and like a knight who is assigned to protect her, are sent off the planet and end up on Earth in hiding. And they start sending mechs to Earth looking for her, so they need to fight to protect the Earth. It is a really, really good show. Mixes typical high school comedy, slice of life type stuff with really, really good mech action, because Genndy Tartakovsky is brilliant at action scenes. So the action is, of course, fantastic. The jokes are very, very funny. It is a very good show, and I highly recommend it if you ever see it. That was a Western mech show. Genndy Tartakovsky was kind of bringing anime to the West before anybody else. Even before Avatar, Genndy Tartakovsky was doing it with shows like Symbionic Titan. And even Samurai Jack to some extent.
What
Go
was
ahead.
his name? Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, before Guillermo del Toro too. Guillermo del Toro. I mean, Pacific Rim, I've heard a lot of people was good. I've also heard from a lot of people it's not good, which makes me think I should try it myself.
You would probably like Pacific Rim. If you don't like Pacific Rim, don't watch 2, but I think you would enjoy it. It is over the top, it's crazy, it knows what it is. It's giant robots punching giant monsters in the face. It will make your inner 9-year-old sit up and cheer.
I'll give it a shot one day.
Yeah, that pretty much was my reaction too. I remember sitting in theaters watching this and thinking, somebody watch Japanese anime. This is what Japanese anime looks like. And it's on the silver screen with American writing. I think my only big beef with it was actually, I think it was just making the dinosaurs predecessor to the kaiju, and it's like, whatever. I don't need that.
Yeah, no, I mean, sure. When it comes to the actual structure of the story, there's all kinds of ridiculous stuff in there. But again, it's a kaiju and giant bot thing. It's like, I don't need it to be perfect. It just needs to be good, and it is good.
Oh, very.
So yes, there are numerous points I could nitpick on, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, but Anthony did remind me when he was talking about Symbionic Titan. One of Miyazaki's movies actually qualifies as mecha in a manner of speaking. It's well, maybe it doesn't. They're robots more than anything. Castle in the Sky.
I wouldn't classify it as mech because nobody's riding them, and for that matter, they Well, I was gonna say they don't even fight, but there is the one scene that takes on the army. So I guess he does fight. Well, I wouldn't classify it as mech. I mean, maybe if you really, really stretch, because she does pick up Sheeta in one scene while it's fighting the army. Sheeta, by the way, is one of my all-time favorite characters ever. Sheeta's like my ideal of like how you should write a character in fiction. I feel like the balance is perfect. Let's see. In the comments, JD Cohen mentions that Jendy Kardakovsky was actually referencing anime back in Dexter's Laboratory. Back in the early 90s, Dexter's mecha episodes are incredibly well done. He is right, and I know what he is referring to. There are a couple, one that's like, I think, a riff on Voltron, where like Dexter's family gets together to fight, and I swear I remember an episode where Dexter turns his lab into a mech and fights Mandark's lab, and like it being really awesome. I actually was not really a fan of Dexter's Laboratory generally. Just, the humor wasn't for me. Now, Samurai Jack, I am a fan of, and Samurai Jack Season 5 is absolutely brilliant, and I loved it. Dexter's Lab, not so much, but I do remember those mech episodes that JD Cohen is referring to, and they were admittedly pretty bad. Symbionic Titan was something different. Symbionic Titan was literally just a mech show. I don't think it was quite as American anime as Avatar, because it was more a blending of, anime mech type action with Western sitcom drama, comedy drama, which, don't get me wrong, worked very well. He was good at both things, and it was a funny show, and the action was good. But it was also not like, it was also not really pure anime the way that like I would have a straight up shonen adventure story.
Mhm.
Like Symbionic Titan was more of a hybrid. It was a hybrid American sitcom with, Japanese mech action, which is not a knock on the show. That's a very creative hybrid. You don't really see that anywhere, but it isn't the same sort of thing. Still, he was bringing anime to the West kind of before anybody else was. Merg Magalramaxis, I hope I pronounced that right, asks, what would a Superversive real robot story look like? The thing about the real robot versus super robot distinction is that there isn't really one. Like, real robot, first off, there is no real robot because mechs don't exist, right?
Fortunately.
Yes. So there are no real robots. So I get, though, what the point of it is. It's more of a tonal thing. And the answer to what would a superversive version of that look like is probably 86. Come to think of it. Now, 86 doesn't have real robots in the sense of like, they're realistic mechanically, but they are real robots in the sense that they are machines that need maintenance and are powered by actual energy sources. So
Of actual pilots.
with actual pilots who fight in actual wars with actual PTSD.
Yeah.
So I think that's the answer. What would a superversive real robot story look like? It would look like 86.
I'd be hard pressed to pick something else. No, I'd be hard pressed to pick something other than 86 as a superversive, real robot story. Other than Zoids Chaotic Century, but that's personal bias. so that would actually, but I'd actually put that second. Ow, that hurt to say. It's 86.
So 86, I would say, as I think it over, like I would think, because Bradford Walker points out, and I agree with him, real versus super distinct, nothing to do with tech and everything to do with narrative. Narratively, I think that it would count as a real robot story because it is about a war with soldiers who do actual fighting that affects them both mentally and physically. It is treated with all of the seriousness of a real war. the robots are treated like machines, not like magical, armor. Like Gurren Lagann is definitely, you would consider it a super robot story, and it's
Gurren
great.
Lagann's a fairy tale. It's fantastic, but
Yeah,
it's
and it's
ridiculous.
great. This is not, However, if you wanted to call it if you want to talk about like what a real robot story would be, I think that 86 is a subversive real robot story. For that matter, I think even you could argue that Ironblooded Orphans. Now, that would raise the question of, can there be such a thing as a superversive tragedy? And I would argue yes. But from at least season 1 and what I know of how season 2 goes, I would say it's superversive. As David pointed out, the Team Tekken, which is the robot, war group in Ironblooded Orphans, is on the side of civilization. They are like the quote unquote good guys. And they are from the start.
But they're trying to do the right
Yeah.
thing.
And they are from the start to the end of the story. So I would say it's superversive. Definitely. Right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And it's not like they threw their lives away for nothing. It wasn't
No, they didn't.
pointless. Like they get what they were after in the end, which was free Mars. Like they had a bunch of other things they thought they were going to do, but the thing they start fighting for and the thing that they finish and succeed is a free Mars. Like a legitimately free Mars with a government that cares about its people and free rights for people and not under the boot of like the other worlds. And they get it.
Yeah, so I would say those are two good examples of superversive stories. I would say 86 is even more superversive because 86 is about how such people could, at least I think it's going there, we'll see, but I think it's going to be about how such people could potentially find happiness after the war is over. Like, it seems to be indicating, for example, Ironblooded Orphans comes to the conclusion that there is no place in the world for these people, that they fought for it, but they can't live there and they need to die. 86 almost seems to be saying, nope, that's too easy. You can't, like, you have to live in this world, right?
Yeah, I think that's an accurate reading of it, because Asato Asato, she's the author for 86, continues to push not just Shin but the other 86 too. What do you it's the theme of the song The Answer.
Right.
Lena, the heroine, asks Shin, what do you want to do when the war's over? The thing is, the 86 can't look past the war because there's nothing for them past it. The war is all they have. But then that changes in the narrative, and they are left with a question, to which the song says, what's the answer? And that's mostly that's it. The series isn't over yet. I think book 10 is either out this February or it's already out and not mass marketed or something. Yeah, I'm still waiting on the translation for book 9, which has been out longer.
Yeah,
but
it's an interesting thing because, like, Ironblooded Orphans, I think this is a valid answer too. They go like, the Iron-Blooded, Team Tekken, they can fight for this world, but ultimately they are incapable of living in it, right? There is no place for them. They've allied themselves with dangerous people. They have made too many too mentally damaged. They can't live in this world. Like 86 badly. Seems to be saying, they have a lot of the same issues as the IBO team, but they go, nope, that's too easy, right? You have to live in this world. The war is going to end. Now, you could just kill yourself, but too many people care about you. That's not going to work. And you might pretend that you have no emotions, but you do. And you don't want to hurt those people. So you're going to have to figure it out.
Basically, 86 takes the characters kicking and screaming and says, no, you're going to live whether you like it or not, and you're going to learn to like it.
All right, sounds like something I need to check out.
David, I was going to ask, what was the inspiration behind War Angel? Because I know what the inspiration behind Lupus 1 was, but I keep missing when you mention it, what the plot for War Angel.
So War Angel is a continuation, though it's not the direct sequel of my Warrior series. So I introduce the Angel class mechs from Jupiter in there, and I was wondering what to do next and how to explain everything else that's going on in the solar system, because the whole Warrior series is how does he keep the solar system from going to war over this alien technology? And war breaks out. And so
Ooh.
what does this aftermath look like? Do I just dodge this? I thought no. So it is mechs in space.
Ooh.
Jupiter are they're not perfect, but like they're trying to do the right thing in general. And so
Okay.
Jupiter are the protagonists. The
Ooh.
Saturnine Union are the bad guys, unambiguously. And it's a fight. It's not just a fight between worlds or nations or ideas. It's also like, what is the future humanity going to look like? You know, are the people in the world's going to have the chance to kind of make their own destiny, or are they all just going to be plugged into this hideous cybernetic union powered by alien technology, which is what the Saturnine want?
Ooh.
And so I figure if you've got mechs flying in space and you have them able to enter the atmosphere, you've got a good excuse to put wings on them, and so thus angel-based mechs. And it's been a lot of fun writing those. Take you all over the galaxy, all over the solar system in there. It's something that can be read separately. You don't have to read Warrior to read it, but it leads on after that. So it's something where you could read either one first, pretty much.
I'll put that on the list.
You bet.
No, you first.
Oh, so the inspiration
No, he was just responding
I
to
wanted
you.
to do a giant bot. I wanted to do a giant bot series. Like, you know, how do I do science fiction that's a little bit different? And there are other giant bot stuff. Like, you know, there's Combat Frame Xseed, which is out there, and there's good stuff out there from giant
Yes.
bots. But it's not as crowded as, say, like Space Marines or something like that. So
Yeah, because I was also thinking of canon. Hang on a second. Yeah, Mecha, a canon anthology. J.F. Holmes edited. I got to pick that one up and read it. And one of the I liked several of the stories. Anthony, what was that anime with the medieval setting, but there were mechs in it?
Vision of Escaflowne.
Okay. When you brought that one up, it reminded me of one of the stories in Mecha. It's called Stack Knight, and it's basically the same kind of idea, only the world is more Dungeons and Dragons. It's kind of a steampunk medieval mech. They call them knights, and this particular crew of 3
great.
has taken this older model and goes that they're.
Oh, that's always a good scene. Like, can the old technology, but the old warrior keep up with the new stuff?
Yeah.
Right.
In this case, they're hired by a village. Oh no, by a lord to destroy a dragon that has taken over a village as of a year ago, and it's a very fun story. The ending has a twist. I saw the twist coming. I still enjoyed the story because in the end, the Stack Knight has to choose which side it's on, and the choice is for men of honor. There is only one choice, and the Lord learns that the hard way. But Yakov Merkin had a story in this one too, and this one was inspired by Zoids as well. It's called Graduation Day, and you have the Zadir Corps, and they pilot. Sorry, getting a little tongue-tied here. They pilot wolf-like mechs, and it takes three people to pilot them. There's the pilot, the engineer who makes in Zadir repairs, and the gunner who shoots the rifle mounted on the wolf's back. It's a very good story. I really enjoyed it, and if you've seen the sequel series to Zoids Chaotic Century, it aired here in the US ahead of Chaotic Century. That was New Century Zero. And that's a straight up sports anime. It's very lighthearted. The stakes are never that big. The biggest they get is toward the end of the series, and that's it's fun. It doesn't have the same gravitas as Chaotic Century, which is more epic in scope and takes you all across an entire continent, and you're trying to stop a war, essentially.
Mhm.
Zoids New Century Zero is just about combat tournaments, but there's one scene in Graduation Day. As soon as I read it, I thought, I know where you got that. So the other one that I really enjoyed in the mecha anthology was Rick Partlow's The Guardian. That one is, I'd recommend getting the canon anthology just for that story. Graduation Day, Stack Night, and a few others are worthwhile entries as well. But if I had to pick just one story to say you got to read it, The Guardian's it.
Okay.
So, which book is in?
This is. Hang on. I will put it in chat.
Yeah, that's probably smart. So I don't forget about it. Yeah, looking briefly at the chat again. Do major redemption stories have room in superversive stories, like a complete villain atoning for his sins and becoming a legitimate hero by the end? Asks
Absolutely.
Merg Magelram. And sorry about the name.
I will say absolutely.
Yeah, in fact, that's arguably the most superversive story of all.
Absolutely.
So the answer to that is a definite yes. Havocbringer says, I think Gundam 8th MS team qualifies as superversive. Is that the Vietnam War Gundam? Thank you. Yeah, I watched like a couple episodes of that, and I found it fine. Gundam 83 Stardust Memories 2. JD Cohen says, most of Tamino, who is the Gundam creator, by the way, most of Tamino's stuff is surprisingly superversive, and it can be tragic, but rarely is it not worth seeing. Overman King Gainer and Zeb Bungle are definitely his Wild series, though. Never heard of either of them. However, from what I know of Tamino, I agree with you. Again, like Ironblooded Orphans is a great example of a series I think is a tragedy, but is superversive. Armor Trooper JD Cohen also recommends Armor Trooper Votum / Armor Hunter Mellowlink, because if you read between the lines, the story is about God sending the protagonist to tear down a faulty world / system. That sounds interesting. Radford Walker says it's a very pulp-like show and highly recommended. Votums. I'll look that one up eventually. It was interesting over the course of this discussion, realizing that I've seen more mech shows than I thought. Dynazenon, or not Dynazenon, I actually haven't seen. That's the new, the sequel to Gridman, S. Dynazenon. But I have seen Gridman, Gurren Lagann, Ironblooded Orphans, 86, Vision of Escaflowne, Kill la Kill, which is a mech show, and Symbionic Titan. So there is 7 off the top of my head. And did I mention notes? So there's 8. So more than I thought. In terms of people who were trying to say that, like, I don't know, that mech was on its way out, I guess, like the Gigax of the world and whatever, or that weren't sure where mech was going. I think that 86 has proven that the market was there. They were just waiting for quality and for perhaps something that hit the zeitgeist of the times, which 86 absolutely did. 86 was a show for our times, for sure. Just cynical and just optimistic enough that it gets a little bit of everything. I will mention briefly, there was somebody in the chat who said that they saw Robotics Notes besides me. Robotics Notes is actually like low-key really good. It's like a slice of life mech show, and it's only barely a mech show. It's actually about high school students who are building a giant robot for a high school science fair.
Because of
But
course they are.
yeah, but throughout the show, there's like a conspiracy going on in the background involving technology, and it ends with them using the giant robot in a fight.
I mean,
So I think the
of course.
fact that I think the fact that the robot is eventually used in the fight does qualify it as a mech show, barely. But only in literally the final episode, and the fight is very low tech. Godzilla Singularity Point, which I have not seen all of, but I have seen a couple of episodes, also has mechs in it. And the couple of episodes I saw were pretty good, so I should probably get back to that one day. Anime Godzilla, they had the 3-movie trilogy, and it started off with an okay movie, and then it was followed up with a not as good, but still fairly okay movie, and then it ended with a terrible movie, the Godzilla movie trilogy, so that was disappointing.
What, we're
Although
talking
the second,
current legendary stuff, you mean?
I'm referring, so they made a Godzilla anime movie trilogy. It was CGI. It looked really good, and
Oh, this is
yeah,
the big one that's actually a plant. Okay.
no, it was. They have to leave Earth and then they come back and they many thousands of years have passed or whatever due to sci-fi relativity shenanigans,
Mm-hmm.
and the first movie I thought was like okay until the end, but the climactic scene was really good where they actually fight Godzilla and they take it down. But then the reveal is that they were not fighting Godzilla. That was Son of Godzilla. And that mountain in the distance, that's actually Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an awesome ending reveal. The second movie, they were promising a fight between Godzilla and Mechagodzilla, and it was a little disappointing because they didn't really do that. They instead did this weird thing where like the Mechagodzilla thing was actually like assimilating with people, and but the
Ew.
final action scene of the second movie was pretty good. What was that?
Oh, just assimilating people. Ew.
Yeah, it was
Yeah, I
weird.
think pretty much everyone's got that. Like with guys like the Borg or anything like that, where it's like, hi, it's just gonna get in right deep inside and change you all the way. Like everyone's like, no, that needs to not happen.
Yeah.
It needs to
Same
really
thing
not
though,
happen
like
in the worst way.
yeah. The
Yeah.
second movie was the same sort of thing. It was kind of dull for most of it, but the final action scene mostly made up for it. This time, though, there was a little bit of disappointment in that we never actually got to see Mechagodzilla fight when it appeared they were promising that. That was kind of disappointing, but the action scene in a vacuum was good enough that sort of made up for it. The third movie was just terrible, and you could sort of see it coming because the series was never great. It was always like on the verge of being unwatchable until the ending, and then like they just didn't have anything.
Pacing
Uh,
problems or something? Because it sounds like it's a good dramatic thing that's going on. Did they
you
just like
would
have
think
people
that,
sitting
yeah, it's
around like
pacing.
talking about like issues and stuff rather than like, hey, there's a giant
Yes,
monster, we should do something about that?
I would actually say that that's a fair assessment of it. Yes, it was pacing issues mostly, and yeah, like I said, like the ending of the first one, though, watching because the moment was just really cool. They take down Godzilla after this epic battle that they barely win, and then suddenly the mountain in the background starts moving, and you get the reveal that like that wasn't Godzilla, that was the son of Godzilla, and that mountain in the distance is actually Godzilla. That was pretty impressive. Uh, then they made another anime Godzilla series, Godzilla Singularity Point, and
Yeah.
Godzilla
I've
Singularity
seen that.
Point was actually I watched like the first 2 episodes and they were quite good. What was that?
I think I've seen the ads for that. I hadn't had a chance to watch it. 86 really does grab you. I
I could
I've
be
heard of a
watching that,
different.
or I could be watching 86.
Yeah.
No competition. But I do remember I heard about a series called Aldnoah Zero. I haven't seen it myself yet, but I've heard about it.
Don't. We just ranked it. So, for people who haven't been following, we made a huge tier list of every anime that we ever watched at least one season of, and then we updated it to anything where we've watched enough of it that we can make a fair assessment of it. Aldnoah Zero, I don't remember if it was in the D or the F tier, but it was very low. What was it, Ben? F tier. It was not
Harsh.
good. Now, with that said, you are absolutely right that it looks like it should be great. It is not.
Oof.
It is a disappointment. Yeah. It's got all of these things that make you think it's going to be like fantastic, but it isn't. So, if you want to pivot to bad mech shows, Aldnoah Zero, there's a good example.
Actually have an example from the Zoids franchise myself. It's the series that killed Zoids stateside, really, and that was Zoids Fusers. Now the story is a mess, to be at least as far as I can tell, and the series didn't finish here stateside, so I had to look it up. And what I saw made me go, I'm not gonna even bother watching it. But the thing that kills me about the series to this day is the animation for the Zoids. It sucks. Pardon my language. You go and Kodak. He reviews toys. He had a video about Zoids because he'd seen it too, and he if you look up Zoids New Century Zero and Zoids Fusers, you can see the difference. The animation for the Zoids, Zoids Chaotic Century and Zoids New Century Zero combine 2D and CGI flawlessly. The Zoids are absolutely beautiful. They look wonderful. You can't get enough of them. But you go to Fusers, and the animation, where you have, I wish I could put it up, but where you have the Liger Zero running like an actual lion in New Century Zero, he goes galumph, galumph, galumph in Fusers, and the CGI is just an eyesore. I wish I could pull it up and show it to everybody, but it's horrible to watch.
So
And
my
this
relationship with Zoids is that my sister loved the Liger and had a Liger. I haven't actually seen it.
Chaotic Century is good, but if you want to ease into the franchise, New Century Zero is also good for it. I'm getting a little blurry here, but Fusers is typically ranked by Zoids fans as the worst series in the entire franchise, primarily for the poor CGI. The storytelling is basically a retread of New Century Zero, but New Century Zero was more entertaining. You have tournament battles between different Zoid teams. The only difference is that the Zoid team in Fusers also doubles as a courier service. So you also have an addition to the Zoids that I hated even at the time, which is Zoids can combine to make a new Zoid or a more powerful iteration of a Zoid, which you'd never seen before and you haven't seen after, because, and to my mind, it was always like one of the Transformers series where you would have, for a time, two Transformers could combine to form a stronger warrior. The next worst series might be Zoids Wild. and it was made just before Zoids Wild Zero. And Zoids Wild Zero and Zoids Wild are both set on Earth instead of on the planet Z, which is where Zoids originated from in the first two series. And I'm going to skip over some stuff, but Zoids Wild was, most of the cast was named after food. Yeah, as I understand it, the story is fine, but it did not appeal to me, so I didn't bother with it after a point. Zoids Wild Zero, as I said before, is an homage to Zoids Chaotic Century, and it gets away with that because the writers are the same ones from Chaotic Century. And I think they pulled in the music, the composer from Zoids Genesis, which I did not like myself for a variety of reasons. But the quality of the Zoids franchise fell off after New Century Zero, and it started to pick up again with Zoids Wild Zero. My biggest complaint about Zoids Wild Zero is that they made the Zoids smaller than they are in Chaotic Century and New Century Zero. The Zoids are still bigger than humans, but they're smaller in order to fit into the screen more so that they can show more personality than they did in the original series. But I miss the Zoids that are these huge, blocky style creatures that could knock down a house. And I think I'm going to stop for a minute and take a break and let you guys chat for a bit.
That is fine. Yeah, as far as Robotech, that was Macross, right?
Yes, Macross.
I mentioned this earlier. The only Macross, because Josh Young, who is a huge Macross fan, and he recommended Macross Plus to me to start off the franchise, and I was I really, it's not that I hated it exactly, but nothing about it grabbed me. And it's weird. Shinichiro Watanabe is the director of Macross Plus, and Yoko Kanno is the composer. So this should be like, wow, a match made in heaven, right? And Shinichiro Watanabe is so weird to me because he has only really made one thing that I've actually liked. And that the problem is, the one thing that he's made that I've really liked is Cowboy Bebop. And Cowboy Bebop is incredible. Like, it is impossible for me to believe that that's a fluke. Like, there is no way that anybody could look into Cowboy Bebop. You have to be a genius to create that show. But every time I watch a new Shinichiro Watanabe show, I am always disappointed. This includes the absolute worst show I have ever seen, which is Kids on the Slope, is a Shinichiro Watanabe show, and I watched that and I despised it. I hated everything about it. It was so awful. I had no clue it was Shinichiro Watanabe. Like, probably weeks or months later, I was looking up his body of work and I saw a description of it and I said, wait a minute, that's that terrible slice of life show I turned off after 2 episodes. And I'm like, that was the worst show I've ever seen. That was Shinichiro Watanabe. So, yeah, he's a weird one. Because we are getting at, it is now 8:30. It is now 8:38. So we've been talking for a good hour, over an hour and a half, which is good. Now there is definitely more for me to talk about, but it would be mostly about 86, and I want to save that discussion for after I catch up on the light novels. So I think that we should probably leave it for now. What does everybody else think? Ben,
What?
are you there, Ben?
This isn't my show. You guys have to make a decision.
I know. I'm making sure that you're aware that. Can't tell if you can hear or not.
Time for all of our mechs to return to base.
Yes.
Mission
So-
accomplished.
We'll say goodbye thoughts. Let's see. What do I have to say? I got nothing this week.
Well, I have. I'm going to put War Angel on my to be read list
Please.
because it sounds very interesting. And I'd like
it
to,
actually does.
and I'd like to say one last thing about Lupus One. It's a lighthearted. I was actually very flattered. I got a review of it not long after it came out, where someone said that the protagonist is not an angsty person, or depressed. That was the word, which was very flattering and also startling because, in my experience, mech pilots are generally pretty chipper, get up and go guys. So that was lovely to hear. And if you want to check it out, it's in Cersova summer issue for 2021, and it has interior art
Ooh.
by Sana Koren, and he did a lovely job. I was itching to see those on paper, and they're just as beautiful when you're actually holding it in your hands. From there, I'll sign off with the typical way they would sign off in Zoids Chaotic Century. See ya on the battlefield.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for having me over. I appreciate being in the mech zone for a bit. And we'll be talking to you guys maybe next time. Take care.
I had a fun time. Have a good rest of your day, everybody.
Just a reminder,